Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Welcome back to my shop. Today we're going to be working on a Shimano 5000 FG Stradic. It's a saltwater reel in the 50 series. This one's just in for its annual maintenance, so I'll show you how to take this reel apart, what items to service on this, and how to restore it so that it's ready for the upcoming season. So the Stradic shares a lot of design with the Sustain as well as with the Stella, in that it has an internal crosswind mechanism that's actually pawl driven as opposed to the traditional crosswind gear and block. So I'll take that off so that you can see the mechanics behind this one. And if you own one, we'll make it easy for you to repair or maintain. If you're thinking about buying one, you'll get an inside look in terms of why this reel is a popular reel and why the Sustain, the Stradic, and the Stella are known for their engineering. So I get started with removing the spool. A little bit later we'll do the drags on this. They're felt drags. Some of us are familiar with felt. There's three types of drags basically. There's a felt drag, there's a composite or a fabric drag, and there's a Teflon drag. So we're going to take that off. Next we're going to remove the handle. I believe the handle has a through screw on it. And we'll take off the opposite bearing side nut, which has the screw on it. And this will give us access to the gearing side, which is what we want to go lubricate. So take that off. Sometimes it makes sense to just put that nut right back into the handle so that you don't lose it when you go to rebuild. You'll also notice that I use a parts tray. This just happens to be the bottom of a milk jug. I put all of my small parts in there so when I go to reassemble, I can find them easily. Okay, now we're going to remove the bump guard, which will give us access to all of the screws. Those are held on by a little Phillips head. And as soon as I find my Phillips head screwdriver, we'll go ahead and remove those. That's not the right driver. Bear with me a moment. Those of you that saw my video in terms of shop setup, I guess I'm confusing the issue right away because I don't have my my little set of screwdrivers. However, I have a lot of those around, so let's just go grab another one. Okay, that's the first screw from the bump guard. That goes in the parts tray. Second screw from the bump guard, and we should be able to take that bump guard off. Obviously appropriately named, because if you're on the reel and hitting the firewalls, gun walls of the boat or what have you, you'll have a bump there. Okay, so three large Phillips heads, one small. It also has a through threading on these so that they could be done with the flat-bladed screwdriver or the Phillips head screwdriver, depending on which one works better for you at the moment. In this case, I'm using the Phillips head screwdriver. I'm going to back all of those off and put them into my parts bucket. This is a good time to tell you that if you don't work on these reels frequently, take pictures along the way so that you know where the screws are mounted, which ones go in which holes, and so on. And particularly as you get inside the reel, if you start removing things like crosswind shafts and that, sometimes there's an A side and a B side to that, so you certainly want to know which side of the reel it is. Okay, so this is going to give us access to the gearing. This one's an interesting reel in that the foot side plate, the one with the reel foot on it, actually pulls off once the screws are out. This one I'm having a little difficulty with. Trying to get the right screwdriver for that small screw. Okay, we're good there, and then we can just we can pull that side plate off, and that'll give us access to the gearing here. So the gearing is a main drive with the ball bearing on the shaft, and then we have a series of cross-wind mechanisms underneath. So I'm going to go ahead and take the top part of this off so that we can open up the main gearing and get at that. This is held on by a couple of pressure washers up top on the main spool shaft. They're just little plastic washers. Usually you can grab them with your fingertips. If not, you can use a screwdriver or another lever to bring those up. You'll notice I'm wearing a latex glove as well. I like to keep as much oil off of my hands as I can. Sometimes working with small parts, that's not convenient, or it's not very easy to do. However, I find the more you can take off, the better. Okay, so I've taken those off, and again, if you're not familiar with this and you're wondering where some of these parts go, you might want to use a camera to take the pictures, or you can do what I call the cheat. You can go to a website. You can pull down the schematic for the reels. Just do an online search for them, and you'll find the reel schematic with the exploded view, and that'll help you along as well if you get lost. So I printed one of those out just for reference here. This is the Stradic 5000, which is what we're working on, and it shows you the exploded view with all of the pieces and parts, just in case you get lost along the way. All right, so now we're going to take that nut off in the center there. I just have to find the right, I believe that's a 12 millimeter. I just need to find the wrench in here that it works accordingly. Okay, there we go. All right, hand thread that off right into the parts bucket with this one, and then once we have this off, we'll have full access. You'll see you'll see that the guard that sits under there, which was holding the main gear in place, comes off. The main gear pulls out, and we have access to the two drive gears, the pinion gear and the drive gear for the worm. There's a pawl sitting in here which rides up and down, and we'll just show you the I don't have I might have the ability to spin this. There you go. As the drive spins, the shaft works up and down, and that's what's causing this to drive up and down. Okay, so we're just going to lube this. Now there's a couple of different spots to lube on this one. This one has a bushing on the back and a burring on the front. So we just want to make sure that we have a nice amount of oil or blue grease on the worm shafts and the core drive. In this case, I'm not going to take the anti-reverse off. It's just a basic service. But there is a burring that rides on the shaft here, and the easiest way to lubricate that is just to come through the bottom and to give that a nice shot of oil there as well. All right, we're going to check while we're at it. We're going to check the teeth on the gear to make sure all of those teeth are in good condition. They are. Make sure that there's no junk riding in those crevices. If there is, you could take a small wire brush, toothbrush if you don't have one, and you could clean those crevices out. And then you just want to put a little bit of grease in there. I use a blue grease. In this case, it's a Penn wheel grease. There's other manufacturers make it. There's third-party greases out there that are fine. Just put a little bit on that, and that'll work its way up into that main pinion drive that we were talking about as well. Okay, so we're ready for reassembly on that. We want to take that bump guard, that gear guard back and put that in place. Actually, we want to put the main drive in place first into the bushing. Then we'll put that little guard on top that holds that in. Last piece of lubrication on the bottom then is the bearing, which we'll do the oil on. I use a general purpose reel oil called Reelex. I tend to find that it works very well, and when you find something that works well, you kind of stay with it. I oil bearings and I lube moving parts with the blue grease. If you put the blue grease on the bearings, Sometimes it'll coagulate and cause problems rather than solutions. Okay, so now I'm going to put that cover back on. I'm going to start with that small screw, which I happen to have left in the cover plate there. And then we're going to put the other 3 main screws back in here. And tighten those down, and then we'll reinstall the rotor. And once we reinstall the rotor, then we'll go up top and we'll do the work on the drag setting. So these are nice reels. They're very durable. That cross wind is similar to a cross wind on a level wind conventional reel that you may find out there for saltwater fishing. It seems to be very durable, holds up. I've never had anybody complain about the operation of these reels. They're very smooth. And the difference between the Sustain, the Stradic, and the Stella is really in the number of ball bearings, but the mechanical systems are very similar in terms of that cross-wind capability. Okay, so once we have that on, I'm going to go put the rotor back in, inspect for cleanliness, and then we can just work that back on there. This has got an oblong shape to it, so you just have to make sure that you find the right sides to the rotor. We'll reinstall that nut. Again, I like to hand tighten as much as I can before I go to the wrenches. That way it gives you a sense for where you are on the threading, and you don't run the risk of cross-stripping the thread. Okay, and then this has that little boot on it, if you remember. The little boot lines up with the holes, and here's where I always run into some problems, so I ask you for your patience here as I try to work with small parts, putting those 2 little set screws in that hold that nut from vibrating. Okay, that looks like the one. Those of you that watch my videos know I have a problem with these small parts. I guess as a career I probably couldn't get it done assembling reels for Shimano or some of the other manufacturers out there. This is why the parts bucket works so well. These are very small parts, and as you put them to the side, they're very easy to get lost. And I'm still struggling with that one little screw there. We will get it shortly, I'm sure. I appreciate your patience with this. Nobody likes to do videos and then feel like you're wasting time doing them. So, the whole reel itself takes about 15 minutes to service, and I think if you have that time, it's well worth it in terms of setting you up for your season. And I should probably tell people, go for a cup of coffee and come on back. This screw is just not cooperating here with me, but we will get it. Guess you have to have a patience, and as somebody once told me, you have to have a sense of humor. And right now I'm kind of laughing at myself for my inability to do the small pieces, but you know, if that's life, right? Wow, whoever designed that just didn't have me in mind for sure. There we go. Success. All right. So now, if you remember, we had the small little click shield for the spool. That sits on the spool shaft. And then we had those little pressure shims that go on as well. And again, I apologize for the time there. We don't have a lot to do with these reels, so it's unfortunate to try and tell you things to do that you don't need to do on them, but they're a good reel overall. My customer is a Shimano fanatic, and I guess, you know, we all have our biases, and it usually works that if the reel has treated you well, then you're going to appreciate the reel, and you're going to recommend that reel to others, and you're going to buy it. So it's not unlike a car, where, you know, if you're having luck with a Honda or you're having luck with a Toyota or a Ford or a Chevy, you're going to stick with that brand because, you know, it's treated you well over time. Okay, now I'm putting the bump guard back on. And in this case, you know, this is one of those things you get what you pay for. It's a little bit more of an expensive design from an engineering standpoint. The cross-wind feature is a little bit more intricate. It gets the same job done as the others. The cross-winding probably takes a little bit of the vibration out of the reel, I would think. And I've serviced a lot of these, so I've seen them come in, and that's all they're really coming in for is service. I really haven't seen a breaking point on these reels. A lot of people have asked me, you know, what's some common failures on the reels. I really haven't seen a common failure on this one. I think it's just a matter of maintenance or lack thereof that is probably the core one. There you go, it spins beautifully. So let's just take you through the drag stack then. The drag stacks are pretty common. Most of the drag stacks and spinning reels have a retaining clip up top. It's a spring. You take it out by just pressing in on it. In this case, make sure that you keep your hand over it because the spring does tend to fly from time to time. This spool and this drag set, I believe, is felt washers. Felt washers get oiled. They don't get, you don't put drag grease on these. Yes, these are felt washers here. So you just want to make sure that they're amply oiled. In this case, they've got plenty of oil on them, so I'm not even going to oil them. I'll just use this as an example to show you. You can see the greases that's coming on my hands, and it's got plenty of oil. Drag stacks in particular usually work with a circular one. The middle one is usually an eared washer that sits in a slot, and you can see the slot in the spool here. Here's your last of your felt washers. Here's your top metal one, which is circular, and then you simply put this back in. Those drags didn't require service. They were nice and clean, and hopefully the reel that you're working on is similar. Drags tend to get dirty if you're fishing a beach or a sandy shore. A lot of times the reel will pick up the dirt through the drag mechanism, and you want to make sure that's clean. Okay, so the last thing, now we got a little bit of grease on that reel because we were working the internals, so I'm just going to take a paper towel to clean that off, and that should complete the service. So we'll just button this one back up here, put that drag knob on, give it a test, and call that a success. That's ready for another season there. All right, any reverse works and all. Okay, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. I appreciate you watching the video here. If you like it, please like it on YouTube. If you want to see more, please subscribe. I post to the website frequently, and I'm doing videos after 20 years of doing service on these things, just to share my experiences, show you how it's done, and encourage you to go do it for yourself. So again, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Thank you.